Hello everybody and welcome to this HTML and CSS tutorial for modern developers, where the only units we use are VW, VH, and the only CSS display types we use are flex and grid, because we are in the 2020s. That's just where we are. No more block, no more inline, and especially no inline block. This is the future. So let's just get right on into it. What does HTML stand for? It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So what it... Yeah, that's what it stands for, but what does this even mean? Hypertext, it just means the stuff that you see on the screen. I'm pretty sure, I haven't done my research. But the last part makes more sense. Markup language. It's not a programming language. You are not telling the computer to execute anything. You're simply marking up how you want the web page to be structured. So that's what a markup language is. So it's different than a programming language in that you're not telling a program, the computer, what to do, but you're telling it, how to structure something. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at what a basic HTML page would look like, and we're just going to use HTML shell for this. This is a really good website when you're starting off, because you're not going to know to type in HTML every time, and then head, and then body, and then in the head put a meta, char set, UTF-8, and a title. So it's just pretty easy. So the head is the stuff that we can't see, and the body is the stuff that we can. And so what is this? What is going on here? What are these less than and greater than? I thought this was a markup language. Why am I seeing math symbols? Well, they're not math symbols. These symbols here enclose what are called tags. This is a tag, this is a tag, even this is a tag. These are just the objects of HTML. So HTML is a tag denoting that everything in here is HTML. Head is a tag denoting that everything between head and /head are part of the header, and so on. And so these body tags denote what is in the body. So once you've got this basic blueprint copied into a text file, you can save that, open up the file in your web browser of choice, reload the page, and nothing will change except for this title. To actually show something, we've got to put something inside the body. So let's go ahead and do what we call in the industry a P tag, which stands for paragraph tag. And we'll just say hello world, save that, and refresh. And you can see now it says hello world. Isn't that crazy? So this P tag is just one of many tags. Another one that you may have heard of is what's called an H tag. So the biggest of which is H1. It's very large, and that goes all the way down to H6, I believe. I think H6 is the smallest of them, and it's even smaller than a paragraph tag. So these tags are how you say, I want this text to be right here. And as you can see, it does go in chronological order, with the H1 being above the hello world. So H1 and P are examples of tags. There's another very, very important tag called the div, and what this does is it creates a division in the page. So it sort of blocks other things off. So we make a P tag, and we'll say test. Now you can't really tell what's going on here. It just looks like you made another P tag. You can't even tell that there's a div there. But if we go in here and we inspect, we can see that it is separate. It's just a container. And it's used for grouping elements together. Like if we wanted to make another P tag in there, call it test2, we could group that. We'll get into that more later once we start talking about more of the CSS, which is how the website will look. But the HTML is like the skeleton of the website. It's how the bones are laid out. And the CSS is how the skin goes on. And maybe makeup and maybe clothes, who knows. So this is the basic layout of HTML. It's mostly H1s, Ps, divs. You could have images, you could have horizontal rules, breaks. So let's say we wanted a horizontal rule after the first P, and here we want a break. So there's that horizontal line, and we've got a little line break there. So, what a nice looking website. It's just black and white, regular text, stuff like that. But there's more you can do. Like, you see this, and it makes you wonder, what is going on here? What is this? This doesn't look like a tag. It's not the same color as this. It is what is known as an attribute, or a way to alter a tag. And probably the most common attributes that you will see are class and ID. Let's just call that divider. So a class is a way to identify a tag or an element, multiple tags or elements using CSS, and an ID is a way to identify just one. You're only supposed to identify one element using an ID. So that's about it for the HTML side of this. Let's go ahead and try to make this pretty. So to include some CSS, we can go ahead and either do it with an external file, an internal, not file, but style in the header, and that's probably what we'll do. Style / style. Or you can do it inline, right inside of the tag itself, saying style, and then giving the CSS within these quotes. We'll go ahead and do both ways, except for the first. We will not be using an external file, just because that complicates things, having to switch back and forth. But it's usually a good idea when you're working in a bigger project, because it separates the looks from the structure. So let's say that we want this first H1 to have red text. And the way that CSS is formatted is the property, colon, property value, and then a semicolon, to end that. So if we refresh here, H1 should turn red. because we said that its color would be red. Now let's say that we want to give it a background color of aqua. Now that h1 tag is aqua, and that's a pretty terrible color combination there, but it gets the point across. Now let's say that we want everything of class para to have green text. So the way that we would do that is by saying dot para, and that dot is basically just saying anything that has a class of, and then we specify the class, and then we give curly brackets to specify everything in here applies to this, and we'll say color is green, and refresh, and then hello world has this para class, and therefore it is green. And let's give that to another one, and refresh, and now they're both green. Now let's say that we wanted to change how every single p tag on this whole page looked, regardless of class. Then we just put the tag name, which is p. Let's say we want every p tag to have a gray background. So now every p tag has a gray background just for being a p tag, regardless of its class or ID. Now let's go ahead and say that we want the element with the ID divider to have a, let's say, text decoration underline. Now anything that is in this divider will have underlined text. So that's how to select IDs. The period is for classes, and the hashtag, I don't know what to call it, is for IDs. So that's one way. Now this website looks very different than, you know, maybe YouTube. It looks very different. This has a header, and you can do this. You got all kinds of stuff that you can mess with. It's not just a top-down 1, 2, 3, 4, you know. It's not a website that just goes from the bottom to the top. It has a more interesting layout, and that can be done using different displays. So one that I think is pretty good is the flex display. So let's go ahead and say that we want the body to have a display of flex. Now everything has a display of flex. Now if we don't tell it more, it will not look good. So let's say that the flex direction is column. Now we're sort of back to looking how we were before. Let's go ahead and get rid of this line break and the horizontal rule, and refresh that. Alright. Now let's say that we don't want these lines going all the way across. We just want the lines, we want every paragraph tag to only have a width of 50 VW, and that VW stands for viewport width, which is just the width from the left side of the web browser to the right side. So let's save that and then refresh. Now they should only be halfway wide. You can see they do have that little gap right there on the side, which you may not want. I know a lot of modern websites don't like this gap right here. So to get rid of that, use the wildcard, which basically selects everything, and we'll get rid of the margin, 0px, and the padding, 0px. And refresh. Now everything should just be all lumped together because there's no more margin and no more padding between them. So let's say that we want these to be in the middle. So we want paragraphs. We want their text to be aligned in the center. Alright. So that got the text into the center of the gray box, but we want the gray box to be in the center of the screen. So the way to do that is with the align items CSS property. That's part of Flex. There's a really good documentation on the Flex display on csstricks.com. I always have it open on my other monitor whenever I'm doing really anything with web design. So what we want is align items center. And so that puts everything in the center of the screen. So yeah, that is basically it for HTML and CSS. The HTML structures the website. You got h1, p, div, all kinds of others. I also use HTML cheat sheet, which is a really good website. It's pretty much shows you everything that you need, very condensed. Shows you all kinds of attributes, the tags, like tables, unordered lists, definition lists, all kinds of stuff like that. And of course there is also a CSS cheat sheet that tells you all of the attributes. It has some stuff to make it really easy to generate CSS, like a text shadow, things like that. And yeah, so make sure to use those when you're developing. And that's basically it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and have fun programming.